Alright, welcome back everyone. In today's video we will be talking about operations with radicals. So this is our third lesson already when it comes to radicals. So far we have learned what radicals are. So we have said that every number that is written using a radical sign, and this what we see is a radical sign, is what we call a radical number. So for example, if we say square root of 9, that's what we call a radical number, right? So a radical, the value of square root of 9 is equal to 3. We also learned that if we have, for example, radical 10, that's what we call a surd, because radical 10 is not a whole number. It's not a number that we can easily find the value of, so we call it a surd. Last time we learned that if we have a number that can be simplified, so for example, square root of 100, we know what that is, right? We know that the answer is 10. But if we say, for example, square root of, let's say, 200, that's something that we do not know, right? But we can simplify. So the previous lesson was simplifying surds. Let us simplify this one. So what did we say? We ask, what are the two numbers that we multiply to get 200 so that you know square root of one of the numbers? So there are many different ways to get 200, but the only combination that works is this time the only combination that works is 100 multiplied by 2. Okay, isn't 100 multiplied by 2 equal to 200? It is, right? Okay, now because it's multiplication, we are allowed to split them into square root of 100 and square root of 2, because it's square root of 100 multiplied by 2. Okay, now we know that square root of 100 is equal to 10, and square root of 2, we don't know what that is, right? So we keep it as square root of 2. And that's our final answer. So that's what we did in the previous video. If you need any help with that, please refer and watch the previous video so that you can continue watching this one. Now, square root of 9 is equal to 3, all good. Square root of 100 is equal to 10, all good, right? But if we have square root of 200, we said we don't know what it is, but we can simplify that into 10 square root of 2. All right. The lesson for today is basically playing with radicals. So we have some basic operations with radicals. Let's say we have, for example, or actually I have a better idea. We will now, all right, there is a worksheet here. Let us work on this worksheet, okay? So let us start with question 2, for example. So here in question 2, what do we have? 2 radicals 8 minus radical 8. So we know that in front of this one, you can imagine that there is number 1. Okay, now this is the same as if you had, for example, 2x, but then we take 1x away. So what do we know? We have 2 x's. We take 1x away. The answer is 1x, right? Or of course we write x only. So when we have 2 x's, we take 1 away, then we have 1x left, right? So the same thing applies here. 2 radical 8 minus 1 radical 8 is equal to radical 8. But this can be simplified. Radical 8 can be simplified. What do we mean by that? What are the two numbers that we multiply to get radical 8? We can multiply 4 by 2 to give us 8, right? Okay, now we split them. We learned that we split them into square root of 4 and square root of 2. Finally, we know that square root of 4 is 2, so 2 radical 2. That's it. We are done with the first question. All right. Let us try, for example, this one here. Okay, same logic applies here. What do we have? Negative 4 radical 6 and negative 1 more radical 6. Negative 4 and negative 1 is equal to negative 5, right? So we have negative 5 radical 6. Done. That's it. There is nothing else you can do here, right? Even though you can split 6 into, like, can you split number 6 into two numbers that you know square root of one of them? The only thing I can do is 2 multiplied by 3. But do I know square root of 2? No. Do we know square root of 3? No. Then we don't do that because it doesn't help. All right. Let us try this one, for example. Okay. We collect like terms, right? Now, what are the like terms over here? Radical 27, radical 27, radical 27. Oh, we have negative 3, and negative 3. What is minus 3, and minus 3? Minus 9. Excellent. Radical 27 will be copied. Remember, same logic applies as if you had minus 3a, minus 3a, minus 3a. All together, you would have minus 9a. So that is the logic we use for this question. But guys, we have negative 9 radical 27. Always double check. Are there two numbers that multiplied will give us 27, but you know square root of one of them? Yep, we can have square root of 9 and square root of 3, right? Because 9 multiplied by 3 will give us 27. Okay, so what do we do then? Minus 9 multiplied by square root of 9 and square root of 3. One more time. Instead of writing 27, we have 9 multiplied by 3. The reason we did this is, what is square root of 9? 3, right? So we have basically minus 9 multiplied by 3 multiplied by, do we know square root of 3? No, so we copy square root of 3. Finally, minus 9 multiplied by 3 is equal to minus 27. Radical 3 remains the same. It stays unchanged. All right. So one more time. Step 1 was negative 3 and negative 3 and negative 3 is negative 9 radical 27. Then we learned that 27 can be split into 9 multiplied by 3. We know that square root of 9 is 3, so we write it like this, 3. But we don't know what square root of 3 is, so it stays the same. Oh, finally, I have 9 multiplied by 3, which is 27. So negative 27 radical 3. Excellent. Let us try to complete this one, for example. Okay, if we look at them, do we see any like terms? This one is radical 12, this one is radical 3, this one is radical 20. Oh, apparently, it looks like we do not have any like terms. But wait a second. Can we simplify them? How do we simplify 12? So minus 3 instead of 12, we can write 4 multiplied by 3. So square root of 4 and square root of 3. Plus 3. Can we do anything with square root of 3? No, so we copy that. Plus 3. What can we do with 20? 4 multiplied by 5 will give us 20, right? So square root of 4 and square root of 5. Okay, let's complete the ones that we know. Square root of 4 is 2, right? So we have negative 3 multiplied by 2, and then radical 3 remains the same. Plus 3 radical 3 remains the same. Plus, we know that square root of 4 is 2. 3 times 2, radical 5 remains the same. Okay, we are almost there. What do we have now? Negative 3 multiplied by 2, negative 6 radical 3, positive 3 radical 3, and positive 6. But this one is radical 5. Okay? Now we say, wait, which of them are like terms? Which of them can be combined? We know that radical 3 and radical 3, they are like terms. We can put them together. How do we put them together? Imagine as if you had negative 6a, positive 3a. I know that negative 6 and positive 3 is negative 3. Negative 3a. So, using this logic, you can easily find that negative 6 square root of 3, positive 3 square root of 3 is equal to negative 3 radical 3, positive 6 radical 5. Guys, are we done with this one? Can we combine radical 3 and radical 3 and radical 6? No, we cannot combine them. These are not like terms. With this, we are done. There is nothing else we can do here. So, we are done with this one. Basically, the logic here is simplify 12 into 4 and 3. 20 into 4 and 5. Once you simplify them all, combine like terms, and you get the final answer. All right. For example, okay, cube roots are fine. We can skip that for a moment. Okay, what do we do here? If we have multiplication, then it should be fine. Radical 5 multiplied by radical 3, we learned that when it's multiplication, you just put them together, right? 5 times 3. So this is equal to radical 15. That's it. We are done. So it's only radical 15. Okay. Here we are. This is very important. Okay. But before we start with this one, I'd like us to revise this first. So if we have, for example, let's say 2 multiplied by 5 plus radical 2. Okay. Step 1 is, in expanding brackets, we multiply 2 multiplied by 5 and 2 multiplied by radical 2, right? So 2 multiplied by 5 and 2 multiplied by radical 2. 2 multiplied by 5, 10. 2 multiplied by radical 2 is 2 radical 2. We just put them together, right? What if we have, for example, radical 5 multiplied by, let's say, 3 radical 5 plus radical 3. Okay, this one is very important. What if we have, let us multiply this actually. 5, radical 5 multiplied by this. Remember, number by number, radical by radical. So if you have to multiply radical 5 by 3 radical 5, and then you multiply radical 5 by radical 3. Keep in mind, we said number by number, 3 is the only thing that is outside, right? So we copy 3. And then we have radical 5 multiplied by radical 5. That is 25. Radical 25. Plus square root of 5 multiplied by square root of 3 is square root of 5 multiplied by 3. We are almost done. What is square root of 25? It's 5, right? So 3 times 5 and square root of 5 times 3, 15. Okay, 3 multiplied by 5, 15, and square root of 15. 15 and square root of 15. Okay, if this one is confusing, let us try. Okay, if that one is confusing, let us try more examples over here. Let's say we have to multiply square root of 2 multiplied by 1 plus square root of 3, for example. Okay, this one should be easy. Square root of 3 multiplied by 1. Square root of 2 times 1 is square root of 2. Square root of 2 multiplied by square root of 3. You can just put them together. Square root of 2 multiplied by square root of 3. That is square root of 2 plus 2 multiplied by 3 is square root of 6. Right? So square root of 2 multiplied by square root of 6. That's it. What if we have, for example, 2 radical 5 multiplied by 2 radical 3? Okay, guys, we know here that we multiply number multiplied by number. 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. And then radical 5 multiplied by radical 3 is radical 15. Because 5 multiplied by 3 is 15. So if you have, for example, 4 radical 3 multiplied by 5 radical 3, again, number multiplied by number, 4 times 5, 20. But then radical 3 multiplied by radical 3 is radical 9. Oh, but we can simplify this. You know that radical 9 is equal to 3. So you can say 20 times 3. Oh, so this one is equal to 60. Please make sure that you copy this one because this is probably one of the most important part of the lesson today. Okay, I will keep it here while we work on the next example. This time we have 4 radical 2 multiplied by 1 minus 3 radical 5. Okay, so we say we multiply this by 1. 4 radical 2 multiplied by 1 remains 4 radical 2 minus. Now we multiply this by this. Remember what we said. Number times number. 4 times 3, 12. And then radical 2 multiplied by radical 5 is radical 2 multiplied by 5 is 10. That's it. We are done. So one more time. Number by number, radical by radical. One more example. If we have, let's say, 5 radical 3 multiplied by 2 radical 2 minus 4 radical 5. Okay, so we say the first one by the first one. But keep in mind, number by number and then radical by radical. 5 multiplied by 2 is 10. Square root of 3 and square root of 2 is square root of 6 minus. Then we do it again. Number multiplied by number. So 5 times 4, which is 20. And then radical 3 multiplied by radical 5 is radical 15. All right. What if we have, let's say, something even more difficult? Let's say 3 plus radical 5 multiplied by 1 minus radical 5. Okay, this is something what we did in the previous chapter, expanding brackets. This time we just do it with radicals. Okay, so 3 multiplied by 1 and 3 multiplied by radical 5. Let me write it the first time. 3 multiplied by 1 and 3 multiplied by radical 5. Then we have radical 5 multiplied by 1, radical 5 multiplied by 1, and radical 5 multiplied by negative radical 5. Negative radical 5 by radical 5. Okay, what is this equal to? The first one, 3 multiplied by 1, 3. 3 multiplied by radical 5, 3 radical 5. Radical 5 multiplied by 1, radical 5. Radical 5 by radical 5 is Radical 25. Oh, but what is radical 25? Square root of 25. 5. Alright, now we just have to combine like terms. We have 3 and we have minus 5. 3 minus 5 is minus 2. Negative 3 radical 5 and positive 1 radical 5 is negative 2 radical 5. And with that, we are done with this question. Shall we try another one? So just simple expanding brackets. Okay? This time we have 6 minus 2 radical 2 and 2 plus radical 2. Okay. Let's try to do it step by step. So we say here, guys, we start by multiplying 6 by 2, 6 by radical 2. 6 multiplied by 2 is 12. 6 multiplied by radical 2, 6 radical 2. Negative 2 radical 2 multiplied by 2. Number by number, remember that. It will be 4 radical 2, we just copy. Negative 2 radical 2 multiplied by radical 2. Negative 2, but then remember, guys, we have negative radical 2 multiplied by radical 2. That will be radical 4. Okay, we are almost done. What is radical 4? That is equal to 2, right? So I will copy this one more time. 12, 6 radical 2, 4 radical 2, and 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. Okay, we are almost done. This one is 12, this one is 4. 12 minus 4 is 8. Positive 6, negative 4 is positive 2. That's it. We are done. So we multiply everything by everything, and then in the end we just collect like terms. Okay, we have last two examples for today. First example is 6 minus radical 5 multiplied by 6 plus radical 5. Now there are two ways to do this. First way is, this looks like a difference between two squares. So we can apply the property a squared minus b squared. But if that's a bit confusing, then we just multiply everything by everything, right? 6 multiplied by 6, 36. 6 multiplied by radical 5, 6 radical 5. Radical 5 multiplied by 6, 6 radical 5. Radical 5 by radical 5 is radical 25. By now, you should know that radical 25 is 5. So I will copy everything. 36, 6 radical 5, 6 radical 5, and minus 5. What do we notice over here? Positive 6 radical 5, negative 6 radical 5, positive 6, negative 6. They will cancel each other out. 36 minus 5 is equal to 31. That is the answer to this question. And the last one for today. Square root of 5 minus square root of 3 to the power of 2. Okay, in one of the previous lessons, we learned that you can use the property, okay, square root of 5 minus square root of 3, there is a formula for that. You can watch the video and use the property, or you can simply multiply square root of 5 minus square root of 3 by itself. Square root of 5 minus square root of 3. Because it's to the power of 2, so we write it twice. Alright, square root of 5 by square root of 5 will be square root of 25. Square root of 5 by square root of 3 will be square root of 15. Square root of 3 by square root of 5 will be again square root of 15. And finally, square root of 3 by square root of 3 plus square root of 9. All right, what do we know here, guys? We know that square root of 25 is 5. Negative square root of 15 and negative one more square root of 15 will give us negative 2 square roots of 15. Plus, we know that square root of 9 is equal to 3. Okay, can't we combine these two together? 5 and positive 3 will be equal to 8. And then we copy minus 2 radical 15. All right. So when you multiply everything by everything, this is what we have. I hope that this was clear. I hope that you understood everything. In case you have any questions, and I know that there are many things that we covered in today's lesson, please make sure that you write a comment so that I can help you. Also make sure that you subscribe the channel and like the video so that you can see every other video on this topic. Check the description box to find more questions for practice. I will see you in the next lesson. And in the next lesson, you will learn how to rationalize a denominator.